SLT Mobitel, the connection. SLT Mobitel, the connection.
ලෙන්ගතුකම වැඩි කරගන්න ලව්ජු රුපියල් 50ට අඩු කළා.
මාමේ එන්න අපිට එකක් බොමු.
Tonight, 264,000 doses. The first batch of vaccines via the COVAX facility arrives in the island.
We hope that half of the goal of the government, almost 30% of the population, will be vaccinated through COVAX.
Vaccine is a game changer, but it is not a silver bullet.
Possible delays. State Minister of COVID Disease Control says that the vaccine manufacturer is unable to comply with the weekly requirement of doses. Counterproductive. The UK government cites insufficient UN Security Council support in referring Sri Lanka to the International Criminal Court. Black Sunday. The Catholic community protests the lack of justice to Easter attack victims, with silent protests at the behest of the Cardinal.
What we expect the government to do is to continue the investigations with all the information through the commission. We believe that there is a peripheral group that is behind it. We want those people to be investigated.
All that and much more coming up on First at 9, this Sunday, the 7th of March 2021.
ඇල්කොහොල් අඩංගු hand sanitizer භාවිත කරන්න. ලෙඩ රෝග ඇති කරන විෂ බීජවලට එරෙහිව සටන් කරන්න. හඳුන්වා දීමේ මිල රුපියල් 350යි.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Dhammike Naik. Now let's start you off with your local stories. The first batch of vaccine doses Sri Lanka is due under the World Health Organization's COVAX facility was delivered to the island last night. Speaking at the event organised to mark the handing over of the consignment, EU Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Dennis Chaibi, said that the expectation is to provide 30% of the government's vaccination target through COVAX, which is 10% more than what was initially expected via the facility. Also speaking at the event, WHO's Sri Lanka representative Dr. Razia Pense noted that the vaccine is a game changer, but it is no silver bullet.
The first consignment of vaccines to be delivered to Sri Lanka under the World Health Organization's COVAX facility arrived in the island last night, marking a milestone in the immunization front. A special cargo carrier of Emirates landed at the Bandaranaike International Airport in Katunayaka at 12:30 last night with 264,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, which incidentally is also the vaccine the country has used throughout its immunization program. State Minister of COVID Disease Control Dr. Sudarshini Fernando Pulle, Secretary to the Ministry of Health Major General Dr. Sanjeeva Munasinghe and Deputy Representative of UNICEF to Sri Lanka Emma Brigham were present at the airport to take delivery of the consignment. The UNICEF coordinates the procurement and supply of vaccines for the COVAX facility.
මේ වෙලාවේ අපි රජයක් හැටියට COVAX පහසුකමට ලෝක සෞඛ්‍ය සංවිධානයට UNICEF ආයතනයට අපේ ස්තුතිය මේ අවස්ථාවේදී පුද කරනවා. ඉතින් අපි හඳුදා ඉඳලා මේ එන්නත්තික වයස අවුරුදු 60ට වැඩි ජනතාව වෙන්නේ ලබා දීමට කටයුතු කරනවා.
The batch of vaccines were then stored at the import cargo warehouse of the airport. In the meantime, the official ceremony to mark the handing over of the vaccine consignment to Minister of Health Pavitra Vanyarachi was worked off this morning at the Health Promotion Bureau.
We know the difficulties in getting vaccines to all. We are aware of that. But at least with COVAX, we hope that half of the goal of the government, almost 30% of the population, will be vaccinated through COVAX. 20% sure, and then another margin. No one is safe until everyone is safe. And therefore, we are perhaps generous, but it's also in our self-interest, and we want the tourists to come back, the European tourists to come back very quickly. We want to trade again with Sri Lanka. We want to live the life that we had before, and for that we think that no one is safe until everyone is safe.
This is one of the largest global vaccine procurement and supply operations ever undertaken, and will provide COVID-19 vaccines to 92 low and lower middle income countries all around the world. As we've heard, the first shipment of 264,000 COVAX vaccines was delivered through UNICEF via Emirates Sky Cargo, which is one of 10 leading airlines who have signed agreements under UNICEF's Humanitarian Air Freight Initiative. We value, appreciate and acknowledge the important role that the Ministry of Health has taken in fighting this pandemic, and UNICEF is proud to have supported Sri Lanka's preparedness efforts to receive the vaccines and to roll out the vaccination plans as part of the National Deployment and Vaccination Plan of the Ministry of Health. UNICEF has also helped to ensure that the immunisation supply chain management system, including the cold chain, is in place and ready to receive, store and roll out the COVID-19 vaccine, even to the most difficult to reach communities. UNICEF is also supporting the Health Promotion Bureau to develop and implement a COVID-19 risk communication and community engagement strategy.
It's indeed a historic moment today in terms of the global solidarity. I won't say in terms of the vaccination because Sri Lanka started the vaccination as early as January, and it was one of the early countries, low and middle income countries, to start vaccination, which rolled out in upper middle income countries in December. So really, this is a moment of global solidarity, which we have been asking for equitable distribution of vaccines globally. Vaccine is a very important tool, a game changer, but it is not a panacea, it's not a silver bullet. And as we roll out the vaccine, it's very, very important that we continue our protection and personal prevention measures while Ministry of Health continues with the public health measures in terms of contact tracing, quarantine, treating the cases. Because if we do it all together, there's more than a chance that we will be ending 2021 in a much better shape than we entered 2021.
Meanwhile, the total number of vaccinations conducted in the island as of last evening had surpassed the 700,000 mark. With 24,757 people being inoculated yesterday, the total number of immunized persons in Sri Lanka stood at 724,278.
Sri Lanka's best health insurance with the fastest claim settlement. Soft Logic Life.
Pay just 500,000 rupees to reserve your unit today. Mulberry Residence.
In the meantime, more remains of COVID-19 victims were buried at the approved burial site in Oddamavati in Batticaloa today, with Army Commander General Shavendra Silva saying that more burials will be performed tomorrow. With the vaccination program in full swing, the Director General of Health Services once more moved to explain the government's strategy behind the inoculation program, insisting that the prime objectives are to limit the transmissibility and prevent deaths.
During the course of yesterday, 8,343 PCR tests were conducted, which led to the identification of 376 cases of COVID-19. 360 of them are locally transmitted infections spread across 19 districts. The remaining 16 involved Sri Lankan expatriates. The Gampaha district confirmed the highest number of infections to be reported yesterday, with 83. As for the other districts, 55 infections were reported from Ratnapura. The remaining 64 infections were reported across 11 other districts. Meanwhile, the National Operations Centre for the Prevention of COVID-19 confirmed that 176 infections have been confirmed so far today. In the meantime, 4 more COVID-19 fatalities were confirmed during yesterday. All of them were identified as residents of the Colombo district from the areas of Dematagoda, Colombo 9, Kolunava and Battaramulla. However, with the confirmation of 5 more COVID-19 deaths today, the total number of fatalities now stands at 502. Meanwhile, the remains of 4 more COVID-19 victims were buried at the approved site in Oddamavati in Batticaloa today. Further, Commander of the Sri Lanka Army General Shavendra Silva confirmed that remains of 7 more COVID-19 victims will be buried tomorrow. In the meantime, Director General of Health Services Dr. Asela Gunawardena once again explained the government strategy behind the move to vaccinate people 30 years and above.
Most number of cases came from Western Province, so we have started the vaccination program from the Western Province, from Colombo and Gampaha district, and it is from 30 and above age group. We selected 30 and above age group for 2 reasons. When we analyze the number of cases reported so far, the majority of cases were between 30 and 60 group of age. And 60 and above is less number of cases. So to reduce the mortality and to reduce the transmissibility, so we have selected to vaccinate 30 and above. Actually, this decision was taken in the COVID task force, which is presided by the president. So this is the strategy of Sri Lanka at the moment. We hope to continue the vaccination program as we planned.
As things stand, 82,059 COVID-19 patients have recovered from the virus, with 290 persons being given the all-clear today. That leaves Sri Lanka's number of active COVID-19 cases at 2,956.
We will see you once more on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
නිවසේ මෙවැනි මතු පිට රැඳෙන විස බීජ 99.9%ක්ම විනාශ කරන විම් ක්ලීනර්ස්.
Welcome back. You're watching First at 9. Now, turning our attention once more towards the pandemic situation. Now, Sri Lanka does not look like it will be getting the expected weekly requirement of 3 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine by the Serum Institute of India. Speaking to First at 9, State Minister of COVID Disease Control, Dr. Sudarshini Fernandopoulos said that the manufacturer is unable to comply with the requirement due to high demand.
Sri Lanka will not be receiving the expected number of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines in due time from the Serum Institute of India. Speaking to First at 9, State Minister of COVID Disease Control Dr. Sudarshini Fernandopoulos said that the manufacturer is unable to comply with the weekly requirement of 3 million doses due to high demand. However, the Chief Executive Officer of the Serum Institute of India, Adar Poonawala, said that a temporary US ban on exports of critical raw materials might lead to limitations in production of coronavirus vaccines by companies including itself. He made this comment during a live stream event hosted by the World Bank Group.
The main challenge ahead is getting doses in the short term. One of the constraints I will definitely put on the table that needs to be addressed is that today there are a lot of bags and filters and critical items that manufacturers need. Now, I'll give you an example. The Novavax vaccine that we're a major manufacturer for need these items from the US. Now, the United States has chosen to invoke the Defense Act, in which there is a subclause which prevents the export of critical raw materials required for the local vaccine manufacturers. Now, this really needs to be looked at, because if we're talking about building capacity all over the world, the sharing of these critical raw materials, which just can't be replaced in a matter of 6 months or a year, is going to become a critical limiting factor. We're talking about having a free global access to vaccines, but if we can't get the raw materials out of the US, that's going to be a serious limiting factor.
However, State Minister of COVID Disease Control Fernandopoulos said that Sri Lanka will be receiving vaccines on a regular basis, but not in numbers initially expected.
Now, the Catholic Church in Sri Lanka today observed what they termed a Black Sunday in protest of the lack of justice served in the aftermath of the Easter Sunday terror attacks, while demanding that the so-called true masterminds behind the attacks be brought to book. Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, engaged in the silent protests along with the Catholic community in the country. Speaking to media, His Eminence the Cardinal called on the government to expedite the implementation of the recommendations made by the Presidential Commission report on the attacks, adding that the peripheral group behind the heinous crime be revealed.
After 15 months of hearings and testimonies, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry appointed to probe the Easter Sunday terror attacks of 2019 submitted its final report to President Gotabaya Rajapaksa on the 1st of February. The long-awaited report revealed a lengthy list of accusations against those it holds responsible for empowering and perpetrating the deadly attacks. The report held a group of terrorists led by Zahran Hashim directly responsible for the Easter Sunday terror attacks and has recommended criminal charges against former President Maithripala Sirisena, former Defence Secretary, former National Intelligence Chief, former Director of State Intelligence and the former Inspector General of Police for their failure to prevent the attacks. However, the Archdiocese of Colombo decided to consider Sunday the 7th as Black Sunday in protest of lack of justice forthcoming in the aftermath of the Easter spate of terror, despite 2 years having passed since the despicable crime. At the request of the Cardinal, Catholics today attended the Holy Mass clad in black. A 5-minute silence was observed in churches across the island today, remembering those who lost their lives in the attacks. Church bells were rung at 8:45 a.m., remembering the time when the first bomb went off. Catholics across the island were seen engaging in a silent protest. Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit paid a visit to St. Anthony's Shrine in Kochikade and supported the protest. His Eminence the Cardinal then visited St. Sebastian's Church in Katuwapitia. The church in Katuwapitia was the site of the highest number of casualties in the blasts.
What we expect the government to do is to continue the investigations urgently as soon as possible with all the information that has been gathered through the commission, and to ensure that the people who are responsible for that serious attack be brought to book.
You have said very clearly that you want those actually responsible, the actual masterminds and perpetrators to be brought to book. You've expressed dissatisfaction with the way investigations over these 2 years have gone so far. We are now at a stage of report. You have said you're looking at the report. It will take a little time.
Yeah,
but what is your primary concern?
We are more interested in finding out who did it, who funded it, and why did they do it. We want to know that. So there is a group of 8 or 9 suicide bombers, but we believe that there is a peripheral group that is behind it. We want those people to be investigated.
Any clues from what you have heard through your...
No, through the commission, a lot of information has been given about it already. And also independent investigations by the CID and others have shown that. So they must pursue that and then bring these people responsible before the law.
Meanwhile, Sri Lankan Catholics living in Italy joined the Black Sunday protest at St. Stephanos Church in Milan today in solidarity with the Black Sunday protest declared by the Archdiocese of Colombo.
The UK government has cited insufficient UN Security Council support in response to a petition with around 13,500 signatures calling on the British government to refer Sri Lanka to the International Criminal Court. The UK has noted that given Sri Lanka is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, which established the ICC, it could not be referred to the court through the UN Security Council, whose members may veto such a referral. Last week, a petition which called on the UK government to refer Sri Lanka to the International Criminal Court came to a close. Subsequently, the British government responded to it, saying that the UK has led efforts to support justice and accountability in Sri Lanka, including at the UN Human Rights Council, adding that there is insufficient UN Security Council support to refer the situation to the ICC. In its response, the UK Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office noted that Sri Lanka is not a party to the Rome Statute, which established the International Criminal Court. As a result, the ICC has no jurisdiction to investigate allegations of crimes committed against the Tamil population in Sri Lanka, and it could only do so if Sri Lanka accepts the jurisdiction of the ICC or if the UN Security Council refers the situation in Sri Lanka to the ICC prosecutor by adopting a resolution. It, however, says, quote, "We do not judge that this step would have sufficient support among Security Council members. Moreover, it would not help accountability in Sri Lanka for an ICC referral to fail to win Security Council support or be vetoed," unquote. The UK government, however, said that it will continue to press for a strong role for the UNHRC to help deliver accountability and reconciliation and ensure the protection of human rights in Sri Lanka. Further, quote, "As part of this, we have presented a new resolution on Sri Lanka at the UNHRC. This resolution will provide a framework for continued international engagement on human rights and post-conflict accountability in Sri Lanka. It will request enhanced reporting by the Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights and request the UN to preserve and analyse evidence which could be used in future accountability processes. It will call on the government of Sri Lanka to investigate and prosecute all allegations of gross human rights violations and serious violations of international law, and will stress the importance of a comprehensive accountability process for all violations and abuses committed in Sri Lanka. It will also highlight concerns about the human rights situation, including particular concerns about the protection of minorities," unquote. Now, no militarization in the island. How is it okay for the US to appoint ex-military figures to administrative positions? And shadow reporting on Sri Lanka at the UN Human Rights Council were some of the things Foreign Secretary Admiral Professor Janath Kolamage spoke of during his interview with Al Jazeera. During the process, the Foreign Secretary also rubbished the figures used to level allegations of militarization of administrative functions in the country.
The President has taken some controversial decisions over the last few months, particularly placing more than 31 agencies under the Ministry of Defense. That's not what the international organization was looking forward to see. What they are seeing now is an expanded militarization of administration functions.
Well, you know, in America, General Colin Powell, who was a military commander, was made the Secretary of State. So that's okay. And there are many countries who are having retired military officer. A military person, just because he served in the military, I think should not be prevented from performing a job for his country. And this figure of 31 is totally wrong. I mean, this includes 25 military officers who were appointed as coordinating officers to prevent COVID in the country. It's only 5 actually. The rest of the appointments are all purely to combat this COVID pandemic. Sri Lanka, when the pandemic broke out, of course, from that time used military. But many developed countries use military when things got really bad.
I see your point. However, seen against the backdrop of the latest developments in your own country, many are concerned that they are seeing what looks like the beginning of military totalitarianism under Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Well, I think it's a wrong assumption, wrong perception. On the contrary, what we have seen as people living in this country after 2019 is a very democratic regime. There is no repression, none whatsoever. During this period, there were many protests. Even a backing charge has not taken place in this country. No water cannon, zero. So there is human rights here, there is law and order here. The president came to power with a clear mandate to ensure national security.
Your government took the decision of imposing the cremation of the bodies of Muslims victims of COVID-19, and then you reversed that decision because of international outcry. Muslims feel in your country, Mr. Foreign Secretary, isolated, mistreated, and stigmatized.
I was pretty much fully involved in the COVID responses, and I have not seen any stigmatizing by the government, any marginalization of any community by the government, none whatsoever. And you said it is not science. Well, it is science. You look at the World Health Organization report, the first one, they said all COVID bodies should be cremated. Of course, later they change it because the evidence are evolving. This is a pandemic the world has not known. When there is a doubt, we have to carry out experiments and find the answer. We took time. Yes, I'm not denying that. But finally, we are so relieved that we don't upset our Muslim brothers anymore. We are very happy about it.
The United Nations Human Rights Chief was saying recently that your government is consistently breaking promises about the need to bring about those who committed atrocities in your own country. She simply does not trust your government.
She doesn't trust the government. She is not here. She never visited here. None of her rapporteurs visited here. These are all desktop reports and some shadow reporting going from somewhere. There are various lobbies who have lots of money. So this is not a bona fide, a genuine report. We reject this report completely. We are more interested than any outside power to keep our country together, keep peace and stability in our country.
We will see you shortly. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is First at 9. Now, leader of the United National Party, Ranil Wickremesinghe, says that the government prints money like printing newspapers, since it has no funds even to run the state affairs. Addressing a public gathering in Borale today, Wickremesinghe also said that the government has lost the trust of the youth who cast their vote during the presidential polls.
එතනින් පස්සේ රජයක් ඔබට ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්න අවස්ථාව ලැබුණොත් ඔබ මූලිකව ගන්න ක්‍රියාමාර්ගය මොකද්ද මේ තත්ත්වෙන් මිදෙන්න
මේ රටේ රජයේ ආදායම් අඩු කරගත්ත නිසා අද රජයට සමන්ගේ සාමාන්‍ය වැඩ කටයුතු සඳහා ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම ආදායමක් නැහැ. ඒ ආදායම නැති නිසා තමයි මුදල් මුද්‍රණය කරන්නේ. වෙන එකක් කියනවා අද ඔය ඉරිදා පුවත්පත් සතිය දවස්වල පුවත්පත් වාගේම මුදල් මුද්‍රණය කරනවා. 2010 මහින්ද රාජපක්ෂ යටතේ 2015 අපේ ආණ්ඩුව යටතේ ඒ අවුරුදු 10 තුල එකතුව මුද්‍රණය කරපු මුදල් ප්‍රමාණයට වඩා 3 ගුණයක් මුදල් මුද්‍රණය කරලා තියෙනවා. අපි එදා බාර දීලා ගියා ඩොලර් කෝටි 750ක් විදේශ සංචතිය. දැන් කෝටි 450කට අඩු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. අපිට බැන්න මුකුත් කරන්නේ නැහැ. අපි ආර්ථිකය හැදුවා. දැන් තමයි තේරෙන්නේ. සෞඛ්‍යයට මුදල් වියදම් කරා. හදිසි ප්‍රතිකාර වාට්ටු වැඩි කරා. සුවසැරිය ආරම්භ කරා. ඒ වගේම දුන්න අධ්‍යාපනයට ටැබ් දෙන්න ගියාම ඔක්කොම විරුද්ධ වුණා. අද ටැබ් දුන්නා නම් අධ්‍යාපනයේ ප්‍රශ්නෙන් කොටසක් විසඳෙනවා. අද සල්ලි නෑ ටැබ් ගේන්න. කනගාටු වෙනවා. මොකද කොයි ආණ්ඩුවක් තිබුණත් මේ රට ඉදිරියට ගෙනියන්න තුනේ. අපි කරපු හොඳ වැඩ ආරක්ෂා කළා, අඩුපාඩුකම් හදලා ඒකෙන් ලැබෙන ආදායම් තවත් සහන දීලා ඒකෙන් දේශපාලන වාසිය ගන්න තිබුණා. ඒ වෙනුවට හැම එකක්ම කඩලා ඉතින් දැන් බඩු මිල වැඩි වෙලා තියෙන්නේ. මේක ආරම්භය විතරයි. මේක හදන්න සාමාන්‍ය ආණ්ඩුවකට දශකයකට වඩා කාලය යනවා. ඒකට තමන්ගේ තරුණ යුගය ගිහින් ඉවරයි. ඊටත් වඩා මේ ආණ්ඩුව කෙරෙහි තරුණයන්ගේ බලාපොරොත්තුවක් තිබුණා. ජනාධිපතිවරණේ තරුණයෝ ගිහින් ඡන්දෙ දුන්නා. මැද පන්තිය ගිහින් ඡන්දෙ දුන්නා. මොකක්ද අද වෙලා තියෙන්නේ? ඒ ඡන්දෙ දුන්නේ තරුණයන්ගේ විශ්වාසය කඩ කළා. ඒ තරුණයන්ගේ අනාගතේ නැති වෙනවා. දැන් ආර්ථික ප්‍රශ්නයකට තරුණයන් කෑ ගහන්න යනවා. කෑ ගහන්න ගියාම ඔයගොල්ලෝ නිදහස සීමා කරනවා.
There is nothing more painful than the untimely death of someone young and dear. The final rites of our dear comrade Tharupati Uvindu Samarakon, who passed away in a tragic collision on Thursday, was performed today. He was only 24.
Our dear colleague Tharupati Uvindu Samarakon passed away on Thursday after our office transport met with a collision. Joining the Derana family on the 1st of March in 2019, Tharupati was a camera assistant who played an integral part behind the scenes to ensure that the quality of our productions was not compromised. He excelled in his chosen field in a short period of time that he was with us. The remains of Tharupati were laid to rest at the Mavathagama Public Cemetery today, followed by religious observances. Tharupati will be immortal in our hearts, and may our fallen brother attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana.
Now, as a new week is about to begin at the Colombo Bourse tomorrow, it is expected that the market will go on sideways movement with both losses and gains. Further, banking sector and material sectors are expected to lead the turnover. The all-share price index gained 0.75% to end at 7,054.49, while the S&P SL 20 index of more liquid stocks ended at 2,791.57 with a 0.82% gain last Friday. Now let's take a look at what we can expect at the market in the week ahead.
For the market experienced a heavy downtrend movement for the last week, and for the first 4 days continuously downtrend and followed by the upsurge in the latter part of the session last week. Mainly the index lost more than 450 points, and mainly because market for the last month, for the whole February, we seen the bearish trend, and due to the credit clearance and the people lost confidence in the market due to the continuous sell-off witnessed in the few counters which gradually moved in January. For this week, we predict a market will go on a very sideways movement. Not a big surge, but we might see a big days and continuance with some red days also for the consolidation. We feel the banking sector and material sector's counters will be going to participate in the most of the turnover, the same as what we witnessed last week.
And that's it from all of us here at First at 9. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.